I'm Nanette Yabiku, and currently I'm an academic coach at an elementary school, and I'm also the owner of Nanette Yabiku Coaching. I don't know exactly what created the desire to be a teacher, but I know ever since I was a second grade student, it's always just been there in my existence. And it continued on throughout my childhood. In high school, I had a brief moment where I decided I wanted to be a psychologist. And so I actually majored in psychology in college. But about 2 years into it, I'm like, what in the world am I going to do as a psych major with this degree? And so I went back to my passion and my dream and entered the credential program and became an elementary school teacher. The fabulous things is that psychology with child development and being an elementary school teacher, everything blended together. So everything I learned about child development paid off in the classroom, and I understood my students a lot better because of that experience. I started teaching in kindergarten, and I taught all the way up to 4th grade throughout my career. And when I was teaching 4th grade, I realized that I needed to develop more leadership abilities within myself. And I had the opportunity to go and learn from John Maxwell. I had a seminar where I listened to him teach 5 of his 15 laws of growth, and it was life-changing. And then about a year later, I had an opportunity to join his team, the John Maxwell team, which is now Maxwell Leadership. And not only did I get to develop as a leader, but I also got to learn how to be a coach, which then I was able to take those skills into my classroom. I started, instead of telling the students how to do things when they needed help, I started asking them coaching questions. And because I was asking them those questions, the children were able to identify what they already knew, exactly what they needed to learn, and I started to see a lot more progress. And then I had this fabulous opportunity that the academic coach position on our campus came available, and I applied for it and got to be able to come here and serve the teachers. As I was doing professional development and as I was doing personal development, I started to realize how much I had grown. And there were a lot of people around me who also wanted to grow. And I realized that I had a lot of things that I could offer them. So I started Nanette Yabiku Coaching. In that our philosophy is that everybody has it inside themselves to grow, to reach their aspirations and their goals. And so I also believe that I follow John Maxwell's quote that everything worthwhile is uphill. And so if you have something that is worthy that you want to attain, it's going to be way up here, but you're going to work really hard to get there. So you're going to be climbing some mountains, which is where coaching comes into it. So I do life coaching with my clients. I sit with them. My job is to ask them the right questions so that they can figure out exactly what it is that's holding them back, exactly what steps they need to take or they might choose to take to move them up that pathway so they reach the highest levels that they want to attain. I offer seminars. I do consulting in a lot of different areas. Some of them are centered around what I've learned as an academic coach, but many of them are personal growth. I also, one of my passions is developing teachers as leaders, because in a classroom, teachers need to have influence over their students so that the students are going to want to grow, so they're going to want to learn and to develop that community inside the classroom that works really well. So if I can take a teacher and I can train them on leadership skills so that they gain higher levels of those skills, it's going to increase the influence that they have over their students, and it's going to increase also their effectiveness in the classroom. Everybody has value, and everybody has goals and aspirations that they want to obtain. But everybody also holds it within themselves to the answers that's going to move them forward on their pathway. But I also believe that everything worthwhile is uphill, and so those aspirations are really high and they're big, but the pathway to get there is going to be difficult. And so one of the things that I help people do is I help them discover that pathway. I help them figure out how to travel up that pathway, get around those boulders in the path, skirt up the difficult parts of that path so that they can reach their ultimate goal in life and be successful with what they want to do. So I have 2 certifications in DISC. One certification is as a trainer. So I can train, like I'm doing with the parent group. I go in and I teach them about personalities, how to interact with each other, how to communicate better. Because when we're able to communicate better, we're able to connect with people much stronger. And that's what we as humans are always working to do. The other certification that I have is as a consultant. I'm able to go into a corporation or into an office and look at the team. I can give them a disc analysis, and then I can analyze it to look, what is it that's happening in that team that's causing friction or that is keeping them from being as effective as they can be. So I train teams of how to work together, communicate well, build a really solid team, valuing every single member of the team so that the effectiveness of the team grows along with them. COVID had a profound effect on society, and it had a profound effect on education. That year, more than a year, when the students were at home, teachers had to change the way that they were working with the students. In a normal, when the teachers are in a classroom, they're walking around the students, they're engaging with the students, they're building relationships, they are looking at what the students are doing, and they're able to help the child in the moment. But then the teachers had to go to this platform with many of them weren't even comfortable with technology, and they had to figure out, how do I motivate those students from a distance? I would go into virtual classrooms and some of the students would have their cameras off and you didn't even know if they were there. I had some students that were in twirly chairs that were spinning around in circles while the teacher's trying to teach. And they'd say, Johnny, please stop. And they'd stop for a minute and then there they go again. We had kids that would crawl into bed and cover themselves up with the blanket. And so it was difficult for the teachers to motivate them and then also to see the work that they were doing. So there were some gaps in their education. And interestingly enough, the biggest gaps we discovered when we got back was in math. So as we came back, we had 2 grade levels that had never been on campus, and they had missed crucial socialization. They had no idea how to work together with other students. They had no idea how to share things, how to sit still, how to listen to a teacher, how to love learning. And normally we just have one, it's the kindergartners coming in. And then even our 2nd graders had missed part of their kindergarten year. So we had a lot of students that had to learn what it was like to be a student. And then the teachers had to figure out how to fill the gaps that the children didn't get because it was such a difficult platform. So the teachers have had to learn how to overcome and how to retrain the students how to be in a school environment. I'm very fortunate that I work for a progressive district. Our district is very heavily in training the teachers on what we call SEL, it's social emotional learning. So our teachers have a lot of tools. They teach the children, how do you stop and take that deep breath before you deal with that situation? What are the things that I can ignore? Because I don't need to worry about that. I can ignore what that person said. What are the things, how do I respond to that person who's not treating me well? How do I talk to them and tell them, no, stop? How do I go get help and express myself to that person so they know that I really need help? So I'm very fortunate that our teachers are equipped with that. But it goes farther than that. In education, all of the teachers need to know that they have the backing and the support of the people behind them in whatever it is. Whether it's that they need more skills developed to handle what's happening from COVID, or whether it's knowing that the administration is there to back them up when it's needed and to give them that little break and to give them the tools that's going to help them succeed. And part of my job as the academic coach was to go in and look at where the holes are in the education and then help the teachers to find strategies to build those skills up so that the children are successful on their grade level content again. I first was introduced to the American Heart Association at another elementary school. One of the teachers at the school was doing the Jump for Heart, and it's a way of getting the children to do an event that's fun, getting them engaged, doing something that is a healthy exercise for their heart, but also to raise money for the American Heart Association. The American Heart Association is there. Their main goal is to do research so that they can rid the world of heart disease and also strokes. So when I came to Thorner, I asked for the opportunity to continue that work, and I took it over. That was back in 1995. It's important for me for a lot of reasons. My mother she died from congestive heart failure. My brother died from a heart attack. My husband had a stroke in his 30s. And then when I started doing it, I started to hear from the community. I started to hear about their stories, about, the students would say, my grandpa had a heart attack. We've had more than one student on campus who, as an infant, they were born with a weak heart, and they benefited from the research of the American Heart Association. So it's really, truly a worthwhile cause that helps every single one of us and supports our community. And they also do education for the students. They teach them how to eat healthy and to exercise so that they have strong hearts. The most satisfying aspect of my work is when you have that child come back and you had no idea the effect that you had on them, and they tell you stories. And they tell you about what I said, what I did that made them feel like they could do it, that they had what it took. I love watching my former students succeed. I have one that's an opera singer. I have one that is, he is working in technology to figure out how to protect our systems from people that break into them. I have students that are traveling the world because they knew that they could. And there was something that I said that encouraged that. And then in coaching, it's that moment when I ask the right question and my client gets that aha moment, and they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that. And then they figure out what they need to do, and they have a breakthrough. It feels good when people that you've worked with are succeeding and they're growing and ultimately making a difference in the world because they're able to add to it because they're able to reach their heights. So the experience that taught me the most, the lesson I learned was community. When I was in my 30s and my children were very young, my husband had a stroke. And my family lived in San Diego, and my mom wasn't in great health. And my in-laws lived in Pennsylvania, so we were living in Bakersfield by ourselves with no family surrounding us. And I got the call that I needed to leave here and rush to Fresno because my husband was being transported there. And I was also told that he might not survive. I might get up there and he might have passed away. And there was also the possibility that when I got there that there was some pretty severe brain damage. And so I was afraid. But I started thinking, what do? I can't take the kids with me. And so I called my friend Kim, who I'd built a relationship with. And I said, Kim, I need to leave because my husband had a stroke. And can you take the kids? And she said, absolutely. There was not even a hesitation. She was just that giving person who just, fed into what I needed at that moment. And then I called up my principal and I said, I have no lesson plans because I always do them on Sunday night. I had no lesson plans, nothing ready. She said, don't worry about it. We've got you covered. And so I dropped off my children and took off. When I got to Fresno, my husband's cousin came down and stayed with me and helped me while he was in the ICU. And then all this time in Bakersfield and throughout the whole valley, there was torrential rains. And somewhere in the middle of this, my friend's house flooded, who had the kids. Another friend said, I'll take them. She came, grabbed the kids, took them to her house, and a second friend took my oldest one to her house, and my community came together for me. And it taught me how important it is that we build that community, that we're part of it, that we're always constantly giving into it, and so that when we least expect it and when we need it, it ends up coming back and serving us. And so I've carried that with me ever since that, realizing there's things I have to give to this world. I have to give into my community. I've got to work with parents of young children so they know how to teach their children to read. I need to work with my students and the teachers, the wonderful teachers that I'm surrounded with, so that they can be the best that they can be. And community is important. We all need it. I am close to retirement. So June 8th, I will be officially retired. But then I'm going to continue serving others and building in the community with Nanette Yabiku coaching. I plan to do consulting within our district and hopefully other districts throughout our county, and continue to coach people and do seminars that help them build and become the best that they can be. So that work in many ways feels more important than all of the work I've done before. So I know I'm moving towards something big.